Hello! Oh my gosh, it's been so long. We are in the new apartment and we don't have a lot of things yet. Like, we don't have any art here really. I mean, there's one thing here, you can't really see it super well, but there's that, and we have some good lighting in here and whatnot, but we're still working on getting everything for this apartment ready, and so hopefully I'm gonna have another video coming out soon showing you guys what things look like here. But yeah, so today we're going to talk about all of the books that I've read recently. Right now, as I'm filming this, it's currently March 19th. So this is everything that I've read up until yesterday. So I'm really excited to talk about these books because I love the winter, specifically for reading, because I like reading fantasy in like fall and winter, honestly all the time, but it feels like especially atmospheric during this time. I just want to talk about all of the things that I've read recently because I have read so much fantasy, like almost all of these. I'm pretty sure I'm looking at my notes right now. Almost everything here is fantasy, and honestly I've been having such a good time. Like, I read quite a few books. Let me count how many. 1, 2. So it looks like I read 10 books in total since the beginning of this year. So in this video, we're just going to be talking about all of those books that I read for the start of this year. So let's get started. The very first book that I read this year is Empire of Gold. And this book is the final book in a trilogy. There is one sort of spin-off book. I haven't read that one. I don't remember what it's called either. Super helpful. I know that one's like some sort of collection of like short stories or whatever. But the trilogy, the Daevabad trilogy, is honestly one of my favorite series, like hands down. I picked up the first book in the series, City of Brass. I picked up City of Brass at first, like from my university. I was just looking around the library and I saw that one, it caught my eye. And the cover of that one is like kind of like metallic. And so when I saw it, I was like, wow, this looks so interesting. So I got that from my library, started reading it, and I was like, this is such a great book. Like, wow, I'm so excited. So the Empire of Gold is the last book in the Daevabad trilogy, and honestly it was like the perfect ending for me for the series. It was like a very fast-paced book, and I never really felt like I wanted to put it down, even though it's literally like 800 pages or something like that. It's a lot. I read it on my Kindle, but I don't know, I was just going through it because I was so invested in all of these characters already. One of the scenes in the final chapter of that book did make me shed like a few tears. If you know, you know. It was tragic. Yeah. Anyways, very great otherwise. I really recommend the Daevabad trilogy. It's amazing, so give it a try if you haven't. The next book that I have is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, and guys, look at this cover. It's so pretty. I love all the little mushrooms and the map, the compass, the different flowers. It's so cute. And if the first book in the series is like super wintry, blustering cold, frigid, I feel like this book is very, you know, hosier, very long grass blowing in the wind, wildflowers. That's what this book feels like. And if you haven't read the first one, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, in that, of course, the main character, she's a scholar, and her whole goal is to make this encyclopedia of fairies, and she's like the first person to do it, really. This book, the second book in the series, I think it's going to be a trilogy. No, the book came out already. She is on a journey to create a map of fairy realms, and I think where the fairy doors are. Because in this book, Emily has more like people in her life, more connections, and she has more individuals around her in her life. I feel like it made the story like way more well-rounded, and I know that in the first book towards the end she has like more people in her life. This one felt a little bit different. It was like more personal. People were confronting her when they were upset by her actions and asking more of her. I really liked that aspect of this book. I also really like the usage of footnotes that continues in this book too. It's not as often, but when the author does use footnotes in this book, it kind of feels like Emily is just like thinking about this encyclopedia of knowledge that she has in her head, you know, like she's referring back to that. And I think it's interesting that her mind wanders off to those sorts of things. So I like to have those like footnotes. It feels like we're learning more about her and the world that's like beyond her. It makes the story feel more grounded because of the history, instead of just stating that these fairies are this certain way all the time, like, oh, like this group of fairies acts this way and this group of fairies acts this way. It's like grounded in other people's research too, and she refers to that information all the time, and I feel like I just like that she does that. Also, all of the characters are very whimsical, very otherworldly. Overall, I just think that adds the sort of fairy tale aspect to the story. It makes it feel very whimsical still. There was very much a few different mysteries and little side plots that made the story like super interesting. There was a lot of things that we were trying to discover, and I literally read this book so fast, like maybe like 2 or 3 days. That's pretty fast for me, I would say. I recommend this like 100%, this series. This one is, in my opinion, I prefer this one over the first one. It's very warm, cozy. I love Wendell. He's so funny. He's just like, he's a silly, cozy guy who likes knickknacks and making things cute, you know? He's very aesthetic. He has a very specific aesthetic. Their relationship, their blossoming romance is very, very cute, and I like that little side plot addition too, along with like the mystery elements and just everything. It's a very, very good story. So I highly recommend this one. Oh my gosh, guys, there's so many sequels and so many, like all of these books are like the second one or like the third one. The next one is The Summons of the Wilds, and this one is the second book in the, what is this series called? Villains and Virtue, I think. In the very first one, Thrown in the Dark, you're following this guy who's like super evil. His name is Damien Bloodthorn, guys. He's on a quest that is like very important to in his head, his character development, but it's all disrupted by this one girl who is like a thief, and their stories get tangled up and intertwined. And that's like in the first book. The second one, I liked it too, but a lot of things were really drawn out that didn't have to be, and a lot of scenes just felt like too forced, you know, and we were kind of all over the place. So not my favorite sequel. Not exactly how I was expecting book 2 to go, but I am still going to read book 3. Like, I'm still excited for that one. As soon as I get out from the library, that's what I will be doing. Book 1 of this series, I was laughing at so many just like random things that she throws into the book that are so like ridiculous or just like really clever, you know? And I really appreciated that about book 1, and so there's a little bit of that in book 2 as well. Overall, I loved the silliness of the story and I love the characters still, but you know, book 2, it's okay. I'm just gonna forget about that and be excited for book 3. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, that is Summoned to the Wild. The next book is Crown of Midnight. And this book is the second book in the Throne of Glass series. I spoke about this before, but I ended up reading the Assassin's Blade first because it was labeled as a prequel. And so I was like, I'm gonna read that first then, right? So I read that one, and then I went into Throne of Glass, and now I have read Crown of Midnight. And I'm kind of happy that I read it that way, because some people suggested that maybe you read the Assassin's Blade after you read Throne of Glass or after you read Crown of Midnight. But I'm happy that I read it first because I felt like I knew more about Selena that was important to know when going into Throne of Glass. That being said, I just read Crown of Midnight and I really liked this book. Like, now I kind of understand more why people like this series. In this book, I really liked all of the political intrigue that we had, and the story itself was like really intriguing, the storyline. But one thing that I really liked is that the world felt like so much bigger in this book. It felt like the map expanded, like in a video game when you have more access to the next part of the map. That's what it felt like, because Celaena clearly is a character that cares a lot about other people. And that becomes more and more clear as we learn more about her. She's confronted with a lot of things in this book, and she's kind of forced to become a better person than who she was before because of the people that are around her and love her. The world kind of opens up more for us as the readers because she realizes the other people that are affected by the king's rule. The ending of this book too was a really great setup, and I did kind of guess the ending, but I'm excited to see what's gonna happen in book 3. 3 or 4. I really like Celaena's story, and I know there's so many more books and they start to get bigger, but I don't know, since you know, I've read City of Brass, the David Bode trilogy, so I'm not too worried. That was Crown of Midnight. So last time I spoke to you guys, I was telling you about how I read 5 Broken Blades, and I have now read 4 Ruined Realms. And this book, it took me a bit of time to read, I'll be honest with you. We have many different POVs from our different characters, but their commonality is that they have a mission that they're set on, and they all have an ability that they specialize in, like poison, a good swordsman, a different sort of assassin, so on and so forth, right? In this second book, it felt a bit more drawn out and as if the story felt a bit tired. The reason for this is because in the first book, the multiple POVs made sense because we had many characters and they were all in different places. We had to learn about them, find out about who they are and what their goals are, their aspirations. We still have the aspect of multiple perspectives from each character, but they start to sound the same to me. The sentence structure and the writing just starts to sound the same. The voices of all of the characters start to sound very similar. The characters also are in the same place a lot of the time, so they're all together, and so when we switch perspectives, we're just kind of talking about the same thing that happened, just like from the other side of the room or whatever, right? Which is fine, like here and there, but we can't have that every single time because then it just feels like we're super stagnant. Yeah, I didn't hate it, but like I really think that it needed a bit more time. I think that this story also felt more like high fantasy, like she was kind of leaning more towards that, but it just needed a bit more workshopping, you know, a bit more editing, and I think that would have made the story more polished and so much better. But I am still excited for the next book. I will be reading that one too, but those are my feelings that I have for Ruined Realms right now. So share what you think too. I'm really curious. I just feel like the multiple POVs was a bit tired in this one and just needed a little bit more work. But yeah, so that one was for Ruined Realms. Guys, I forgot I had the copy of... Okay guys, if you don't know what it looks like, this is it. Next book that I read, oh my gosh, it was so amazing. I read Legendborn. Wow. This book, amazing. Blew my socks off. Legendborn, by far, is one of my favorite books this year, like thus far. Maybe of all time. It was so great. Like, I could not put that book down. I read it in like 4 days maybe. It was so good. When we meet our main character, Bree Matthews, she's a 16-year-old girl and she's in a state of shock. The reason for this is because she has just gone through a very big loss. She's lost her mother in a car accident. The beginning part of the book is her just like struggling to find herself after this event has happened to her. In order to cope with the loss, she decides to go to an early college program at this school that's like 3 or so hours away from her home. And on the very first night, she witnesses a very strange occurrence. She sees something that she is not supposed to see. The story kind of goes from there, and I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it. The writing in this book is just so good. It's the perfect blend of like descriptive and straight to the point, you know. It's the perfect blend of those things. There are mystery elements, there's a secret society, there's some college classes, not a lot. There's another world, there's magic. It's really, really great. I really loved the story. Another thing that I really loved about Bree too is that she's a very, very smart character. Oftentimes in fantasy novels, other characters or like the author will want you to think that a character is like really smart or really funny or witty or whatever. They might be like a little bit, or you know, they might figure something out that like you already figured out, you know. But when it comes to Bree, she is always asking the right questions. You know, she's very smart. Sometimes she would say things in the book and I'd be like, what? I didn't even think of that. She's very to the point. She's very brave. So when the author says that Bree is smart and brave, I believe it because she shows me every single time. She stands up for what is right, and she's just like a great character. The second book is called Bloodmarked, and I just started that one recently too, so I'm so excited to go back into this world. Like, I couldn't wait any longer, you know. It's only been like a month maybe or less. So guys, if you haven't read Legendborn, I was waiting on it for too long. You need to get on it now. It's so good. And also the third book just came out, so I'm just saying, you should read it. So that's Legendborn. The next book is A Fate Inked in Blood. This book is a Norse-inspired fantasy. We start out with our main character, Freya, who is the wife to this man who is very beloved in his village because he provides a lot of things for them. I think a lot of fish. And it sounds kind of funny like that. But the reason why is because he is God blessed. So he has an ability to attract marine life. Yeah, I don't know. She's supposed to just be seen as like, oh, the wife, whatever, you know, like don't think about her. She's just like a pretty face, whatever, right? Our main character, Freya, she doesn't want to be like just a simple wife who just spends time, you know, gutting fish and taking care of house. She wants to be a warrior. Her dreams become a reality when she makes a very irrational but very necessary decision. So after she makes this decision, so many things, so many aspects of her life change. I don't want to say more than that. This book is very, very fast paced. It has a lot of romance elements. It's very lusty. So if you're looking for something like that, it's very fast-paced, really great. It has a lot of interesting elements. Even though the ending was super predictable, I kind of like the setup for the following book. Like, I feel like the next book has a lot of potential. So I do want to continue this series as well. I'm excited to see where Freya's story goes. That is A Fate Inked in Blood. The next book that I read is Funny Story. This one I really like. The inside bit, it's like pink with blue lettering. Super cute. In this story, our main character is Daphne, who is a children's librarian. She falls in love with this guy, Peter, who is kind of like picture perfect kind of guy. He's super tall, super handsome, you know, he has a lot of money. They are planning to have their wedding very, very soon when suddenly Peter, one night after he goes out for his his bachelor party, he comes back and he's like, listen, baby girl, I need to tell you something. And he tells her that he has been in love with his girl best friend that he told her not to worry about for as long as he can remember. And she had confessed her love to him that night. And he tells her, we're gonna give you a week, we're gonna go away on vacation, and when we come back, like, you gotta be gone, basically. Daphne is kind of all alone in this town that she lives in with him, and everybody there is like his friend and his family. The house is his house, it's in his name. So she kind of has to decide what she's gonna do next. And the only person that is going to understand the situation that she's in is the other person that got dumped in the situation, which would be Peter's now girlfriend, his girl best friend turned lover, her boyfriend Miles. And so she proposes that they become roommates for the time being since he has the free space now. Miles and Daphne are put in this kind of awkward, uncomfortable situation, being the exes of the two people that fell in love with each other who were best friends for as long as they can remember. I understand why a lot of people are saying that this was not their favorite of Emily's. And the reason why I get that is, I guess like the male lead, he's not the most perfect guy. For like the first 40 or so % of the book, he is still in love with Petra and missing her and kind of like grieving their relationship. And so is our main character too, Daphne. But, you know, usually in romance books, you want the guy to like instantly know that he wants to be with a girl and be like super obsessed with her and whatnot. And that doesn't really happen here. It's more of like a slow friends to then people that love each other very deeply. And there's also one thing that kind of happens that you're kind of like, what? Like, what? Excuse me. And so I do get that. It makes sense. What I do really like about Miles is that he is super kind, super loving, super caring, and he goes out of his way to make people's lives better. He is very involved in his community. He's a very good person, but I think all of those qualities make him worthy to be the lead of this romance. It's really cool, so I think you should give it a read, honestly. So that is Funny Story. The next book that I read is An Ember in the Ashes. This book I've heard a lot about just in the book community. Our main character is Laya, and she lives with her grandparents and her older brother in this crowded, very small community that is ruled by a very cruel empire. One night, the soldiers that run this sort of fearsome empire, they break into her family home and they arrest her brother. They're making a lot of bold claims, making a lot of scary, like life-changing claims. Laya has to make a lot of big decisions, and she endures a lot in order to take care of her family and better the future. The characters have very specific character arcs, so like this person is a hero, this person is a villain, and so on and so forth, and they don't really diverge a lot from those character arcs, which I do like. I think is good, you know, but you know, that's something to note. The relationship dynamics really shine in the story, and the love that the characters have for each other, especially when it's up against or compared to the sheer strength and power and terribleness of the empire that they're under, and the trajectory of their lives is dictated by. So I think that is like a very powerful message, and it was good, you know. So I'm excited to read the next one, this one here, The Torch, or A Torch Against the Night. So I'm gonna go into that one soon because the way that the book ended was like super abrupt and a lot was happening. So I'm excited to go back into that world and, you know, see what's up with Laya and, you know, the other character. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's very good. So I would definitely recommend An Ember in the Ashes. The last book, surprisingly, is The Four Winds by Kristin Hannah. And it's so surprising because everything I read was like a sequel or fantasy. So in this book, our main character is Elsa, and she is from this city in Texas in 1921. And at this time, there's a lot of abundance and fun things happening and clothes that have beautiful patterns, dancing and drinking and all these cool things, right? But Elsa is 25 and she's a spinster, and she loves to read books and whatnot, and she's very reclusive. The reason for that is because her family sort of pushes that, you know, persona onto her. They oftentimes tell her that she's unattractive, or because she had an illness when she was young, that she is not fit to do anything, honestly, and she must rest. and she's never gonna get married or have a husband because she's unattractive. But she decides that she wants something different for herself. She wants something else to come out of her life other than this. So she decides to go out and make her way, and she ends up meeting this guy. And the story kind of goes from there. The main focus in the story is the Dust Bowl. So we have this huge shift from the beginning of Elsa's life where she's living in abundance, and like you have this overwhelming sense of dread that kind of like boils up and spills over throughout the whole story. I would say that there are some positive moments, but it honestly overall is like a very, very sad story. This story is not based on an actual person, but it's based on a lot of experiences that a lot of people had during this time. It's good that Kristin Hannah focused on how a lot of women were affected during the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression. So I like that she focused on that, and there is a bit of hope towards the end, but it is ultimately a very sad and dark time in American history. So it's kind of like a sad note to leave this discussion on, but I would say that this book is really good, but just know that it's gonna be a tough read, honestly. So that's The Four Winds by Kristin Hannah. And overall, it's been a great few months just reading and whatnot, and especially during the rainy and cold seasons that we have here right now. So I would love if you guys would comment down below, just let me know if you read anything that you think I would enjoy, or you just want to share your thoughts on like a book that you read recently. I would love to hear, what your thoughts are and what's going on with you, just let me know. And yeah, so that's everything that I read thus far in 2025. And thanks so much for being here. I hope you have a great rest of your evening, your morning, whenever you're watching this. I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay, peace and love. Bye.